Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Hey guys, I am going to talk to you today about Apple's announcement. So Apple just announced their earnings, and it further proves that this company is going down. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to check out my video on basically how why Apple's falling and why they will continue to fall. This just proves on why they will keep falling. Supposedly, aftermarket, they're expected to even drop close to $50 after hours already, which is really bad, obviously. It just that is the market's reaction to how bad these numbers were. And it's not that they're terrible, they just show no growth. And this is what I mean by that. There's been no change in profit year over year from Apple. From last year, they basically had a 13.1 billion profit from last year, and they contained that again this year. So there's been no profit growth. And that's never good, especially for a high-end company that was always trending upward, and now for it to stay stagnant, it basically means that they went up, now they're going down. And it's what I've been saying that will happen to Apple all along. I mean, they just do not have the same thing, and a lot of it is from profit margin. Their profit margin is down. It had sorry. So let me go over gross margin. Their gross margin dropped to 38%, whereas last year it was closer to 45%. So that's a pretty big drop. And the reason I told you guys before was because the iPad Mini, they only make $130 per iPad Mini sold, whereas iPads they make 300 plus. So basically, or sorry, the iPad Mini starts 130 plus too, of course. But that means they have to sell double the iPad Minis, and they're not. They're not. And the funny thing is I love how Apple actually does, and this is always what they do. They never tell us which ones are selling. They said, that iPhones sold 47.8 million, whereas iPad sold 22.9, but they don't tell us which ones sold. Were the iPad Mini was the iPad Mini the top seller? Was the iPad? Was the iPhone 5? Was the iPhone 4? Was the iPhone 4S? None of these things are said. And the reason is because I think if they would actually reveal that, their stock would go down further. Most people don't know the iPhone 5 sells less compared to the iPhone 4S and 4. And that's another reason for their margin going down, is because of the fact that not many people more people are buying the inexpensive iPhones compared to the new iPhone. Because now when people go inside of stores, they're like, hey, it's a free phone. So they'll buy the iPhone 4. iPhone 4S, I don't believe will sell that much anymore. The middle one isn't selling as much unless you want Siri. And that's the main reason that one sells instead of the 4. And then the 5 is selling because there's still a demand for it, but it obviously wasn't as big as Apple has been in the past years. It wasn't the dominant player anymore, and Samsung really took that away from them. And if you don't believe me, the interesting thing is that Samsung actually beat Apple in terms of their sale, in terms of who bought the most chips this year, basically processor chips. And to give an idea about this, Samsung doesn't just buy chips; they create them. Actually, every chip that Apple uses for their iOS products is made by Samsung. The A5, the A5X, the A6, A6X, all those current models are made by Samsung. So, counting everything that Apple buys and then everything that Samsung makes, but besides what they just make, they buy too. So, like the S4 processors made by Qualcomm, that is, that's not Samsung owned, that is what they purchase. So that's really interesting that they do that. I think it's really interesting overall that Apple is trending still downward, and as much as PRs are trying to put out, so I'll go over this in another video, but I will go over that. I think they're really trying to manipulate some statistics now, and we've seen that in Kantar. So I will go over that further because I believe that's a travesty that some profits are being manipulated or some statistics are being manipulated, and they've been proven almost without a shadow of a doubt that they were manipulated. So I just think Apple's trying to do anything they can to show the public that, hey, no, we're okay, and public's not buying it anymore. Apple stock, don't get me wrong, I think they were too high, that people had too much faith in the company than from what it actually really is. Oh, it's going to be the first $1 trillion company, it's going to be all this kind of stuff. Not the way it's going anymore. It's really just not showing what it did, and it has hit its peak. And after the peak, you can only go down, and that is just what this company is going to. And I'm letting you guys know that just because it really they're only further making mistakes as we see. You know, the whole rumors about Apple Math, or iPhone Math, and all this kind of stuff. That there might be two iPhones around with that. That would be the biggest mistake that they could make, and that will only cause them to go down further if they would make two features, because what's happening is going to be the same thing that happened now, which is the iPhone 4 and iPhone 5. The iPhone 4 is outselling the iPhone 5. But of course, you know, iPhone 4 is making them a lot more money compared to the 5 because it's older parts. If they make two new phones with two newer parts, that's only going to drain more of their money. And it will eventually cut their profit more, and it's just gonna, you know, and I do blame Tim Cook. I do blame him for a lot of this. And you can say what you want about him or whatever you think he's good or and all of that, but a good CEO would not let their stock drop almost $250 in 3 months. That's ridiculous. That's just horrible. Like that's, you know, the purpose of a bad CEO. I mean, that is the definition of a bad CEO. You know, if you're a chief executive officer, you really need to take the company to its full potential, and that's not what's going on. Don't get me wrong, even if I knew how to fix it, which I could do a better job than him because I know the company so well and I know what makes them successful, I would never would. Just because, yeah. Well, you guys know my feelings on Apple. But it's really interesting to see how far they've fallen and how far they're going to continue to fall. I mean, and people won't believe it, but you know, people thought the same thing about, you know, BlackBerry. You know, in the early 2000s, that it was the greatest thing ever, and no one ever thought it would fall, and it did. You know, Apple went bankrupt once before. Steve Jobs was the person who pulled it out and made it what it was, and now everyone is just running around like with their heads cut off, like in that company. They just don't know what they're doing. So yeah, it's really poor management from all sides, and they really haven't done anything innovative this past year, and it shows. Um, I feel that yes, Samsung is the one that's really kind of sees this opportunity and kind of taken that from them, and it shows. It shows that they've gained. Samsung has grown more than any other company this year. I'm sure when they reveal their see, like, you know, Apple. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, $54.5 billion in revenue is great, but it's the fact that, you know, the way they're trending, that it really is their peak, and that's it. And you know, next quarter I see them going down year over year, and that's huge for Apple because they haven't had that in a long time. But they haven't done anything like this in a long time, where it was just, eh, and that's what they're getting. And other companies are taking advantage of this, and they're really showing cutting edge technology more, such as things like the S Pen. Like, all right, just let me prove to you, Samsung has split screen. No one else has that. You can have two apps up at the same time. Samsung has the S Pen, which really has a lot of functions. It's by far better than just a stylus because it really adds functions like a mouse does to a computer. It just adds a lot more effects than just a simple stylus, which I see so many people that own iPads and that have a stylus, and then when I pull out my Note Pen, the Note S Pen, they're like, man, that's so much nicer. Like, can that work for anything? I'm like, no, it only works for Samsung. You know, things like pop-up play, things like S-Beam. If you have two other phones, you can't share 30-minute HD videos within 3 minutes on any other device. You have to have two Samsungs. iOS devices can't do that. You know, two LGs can't do that. Two HTCs can't do that. Two Motorola's can't do that. Samsung is the only one that can do it that quickly and that easily, where anyone can do it. So it's just really, they not only have the hardware, they have the software to back it up, and that's why they're beating them. So yeah, guys, very disappointing Apple announcement. I mean, well, disappointing for Apple and the general public. I advise, and again, this is just my opinion, of course, but you know, I wouldn't keep Apple stock if I had it anymore. I would take it out, invest in like Google or Samsung because they're the companies that are trending up, even Qualcomm or Nvidia. I would do it in a company that's trending up, not trending down. That's just my opinion. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This has been RICKY, the Android Guy.